Sistemas agrosilvopastoriles, una alternativa para el desarrollo y la sostenibilidad de la ganadería.
Agrosilvopastoral systems have become a great technological strategy when implemented in livestock production. Vistazo Agropecuario visited Finca La Herradura located in the municipality of Puerto Lopez, Meta, a model developed with fodder sorghum crops and brachiaria pastures together with a tree corrector. This has allowed a favorable development of the cattle, in addition to the multiple environmental benefits that this method provides. Basically, through the agrosilvopastoral systems, as its name indicates, it seeks to implement three components that will contribute to each one of us in its operation as a system, a series of benefits that are directed when we establish a pasture at the same time with a crop that will generate a possibility of forage conservation or production. Depending on the crop we plant. At the same time we establish the trees according to a previously designed diagram. We take care of them until they reach their age or size for development. The benefits are in terms of weight gain, they are in environmental terms because we know that this helps us a lot to mitigate all the effects of climate change, the effects of gases, the greenhouse effect, worth the redundancy. Likewise, it has to do with helping countries to comply with their environmental sustainability commitments, and obviously everything that has to do with what we call environmental benefits. So, these systems are becoming more and more accepted, promoted and obviously implemented by livestock producers. The Agrosilvopastoral project is framed or its main objective is to establish a pasture through a crop. So we have two benefits. One is the production of forage to conserve through the crop, and simultaneously, with the planting of sorghum we are sowing grass seed that will remain in the pasture after harvesting the sorghum forage. This is a very important task, because it costs the producer almost 0 pesos to establish a pasture that also benefits from the residual fertilization of the crop. There are many benefits of this system, one example of which is soil recovery. In this case, despite being complex and not very fertile, good results were achieved. It is a topic that is gaining a lot of strength compared to traditional cattle raising. And the benefits are very easy to see when comparing the traditional with these new schemes that science brings. Let's say it this way. Because we really need the support of people who know and handle these topics properly. We see a very palpable example in this 5-hectare lot, where we are recovering a very difficult savanna soil, because its natural conditions are very precarious. With the work we have done, we are recovering a piece of land that we are beginning to make fertile. We are taking advantage of it, because we have food for the difficult summer season for the cattle and we have a very well implemented prairie. I will be left with a pasture or a paddock with properly corrected soil, because here we worked hard with dolomite lime, phosphoric gypsum and everything that the technical part required to do the tracking and chiseling with the necessary depth. These are very barren, very precarious lands, and I believe that with the work that was done, it is a prairie that at least in 3 or 4 years will not require assistance. The benefit is not only what we are going to collect now, the 80 or 100 tons of food for the summer, but also the pastures and a paddock that will be left for the future. This is going to be an example, within the farm, of what can be done in these mountainous and difficult lands, where practically nothing could be harvested before. The sweet sorghum for forage variety JJT18, planted at Finca La Herradura, was developed by Agrosilvopastoral as an alternative for nutritional supplementation in cattle raising and fattening production systems for the natural subregions of flat highlands, Piedmont Llanero, dry Caribbean, humid Caribbean and geographic valley of Magdalena River. Agrosilvopastoral has been working and researching in order to produce materials that allow farmers to feed their cattle during all seasons of the year, both in the dry season and in the rainy season. With this sorghum, what we are looking for is that per multiple area unit, we make a greater production of biomass that serves to store and then supply in critical times. The sorghums that we have at the moment are producing in the Colombian highlands about 30 tons per hectare in the first cut. If we manage it properly with an early establishment, we can have up to 2 or 3 harvests that could represent about 50 to 60 tons of forage per hectare. These are very good volumes, superior to the corn that is planted here in the region with low costs and inputs. Forage sorghum JJT18, from establishment to cutting is 94 days. At 4 or 5 days it is beginning its germination process, and at 94 days it is already in its maturation process, where the panicle as such shows the characteristics of a doughy grain, which indicates that it is ready to harvest. One of the ways to produce high biomass and be able to conserve it for use in critical periods is wet conservation, which we call silage. There are different types of silos, piles, bags, bins, and today we are working with a type called silo press, a long plastic tube in which the material that has been finely applied and with excellent conservation is stored. One of the advantages of this system is that losses of forage materials are minimal, but we have to be very careful with the selection of the site where we are going to place the silo. It is very important that it is not far from where it is going to be used, where they do not have to walk 2 or 3 kilometers to take the animals. So, we must locate a site close to where it is going to be used, a site that is not flooded, free of obstacles that will damage the bags we are going to fill, a site that is easy to enclose, that does not allow animals to enter. Other important things, inherent to the crop, are that the harvester makes a good chopping, that the particular size is less than 2 centimeters, that the filling in the silo press is adequate so that there are no areas full of air, that it is not exaggerated and that it does not break due to too much internal pressure. This is something we have to be very careful about at the time of harvesting. We have to be aware of these adjustments. They must be made when harvesting is in progress. Once the process is finished, the sealing must be very good to prevent air from entering. That is essential. If we leave areas or places where air can enter, we will not have an adequate fermentation, and if we keep it, we can have the material preserved for more than a year without losing the organoleptic characteristics, without losing the nutritional conditions. Obviously, the idea is to use it during critical periods, not to keep it for the sake of keeping it, but to try to improve the feeding of the animals, either because in critical periods such as droughts or high rainfall they do not have enough forage, the silage can be supplied to them and we can compensate for that. The other option is to increase the animal load of the farm, to have more animals per unit area. These are the two options we can have with the conservation of silage. Cattle feeding is one of the factors that most influences the profitability of the cattle farm. The most economical feed that can be produced on the farm is grass. This value increases when the feed has to be brought outside the farm, therefore it is important to produce it inside the farm. Unfortunately, many ranchers don't manage the passage as a crop and their animals are generally underfed, not getting the necessary amounts of grass. But, if I manage that and also have additional forage production per unit area with these sorghums, what I could have is very low feed prices, or feed values. This is one of the important options we have with this material, to produce high volumes of feed per unit area. In critical periods, mainly dry, which in our region can be 3 to 4 months without rain, the grass stops growing, the amount of available feed per forage is minimal and decreases to more than 50%. What we are looking for is that this material that we have preserved allows at least the animals to maintain their weight, and in many cases, to gain some weight. When the farmer normally does not do this, weight is lost or animals lose their lives.